Conference. It really is fantastic to be here in person for the first time at an autumn conference. I've been waiting a long time to say this, as the Member of Parliament for St Albans. Now, it's our first autumn conference together since the last general election. But it could be our last autumn conference before the next one. If the Prime Minister decides to hold the general election in May, he will call it at the end of March, and that, my friends, is 26 weeks away. If that doesn't fill you with excitement, and that was definitely excitement I could hear from the floor, I'm sure, I don't know what will, because we have a huge opportunity. Right across the blue wall, and indeed right across the country, people are furious with the Conservatives. I haven't seen anything like it. People are just angry that nothing works. People are angry that everything's broken. And people are angry that everything we cherish, our NHS, our precious environment, our standing in the world, they've all been trashed. What's more, they know who did it. It was this appalling Conservative government. Too busy fighting each other to do, frankly, anything useful. But it's not just that the Tories blew a hole in our economy, that they've driven our health services into the ground, or that they allow water companies to pump raw sewage into our rivers with impunity. It's not just all of that. The most unforgivable thing about this Conservative government is that they have broken people's hope. It's true. There are people around the country who now think that things are so broken, they just don't believe that anyone can fix it. But I believe that when people feel there is no hope, we have to give them two things. We need to give them ideas that inspire and leaders they can believe in. Leaders that they believe in. Conference, boy, do we have some good people. Right across the country, Liberal Democrat MPs, parliamentary candidates and Liberal Democrat-run councils are showing the difference that hard-working local champions can make. Let's take just a few examples from our MPs. Vera introduced a new law to ban upskirting. Wendy introduced a new right for carers to take care leave, a landmark piece of legislation. Layla's 4-year campaign put an end to an archaic law so that sleeping rough was no longer considered a crime. And Ed, well, not only did he nearly quadruple renewable energy in this country, now he is using his personal experience to put the cause of care and carers at the heart of the national agenda. From Sutton to St Albans, from Cotswold to Kingston, from Gosport to Portsmouth, Liberal Democrat-run councils are tackling the climate emergency, building social homes and enhancing our community infrastructure. And every time we win, Conference, every single time, whether it's a single council seat, whether it's control of a council or a parliamentary constituency, it is a win for hard work. Because the system is stacked against us. And under first past the post, and as a smaller party, elections don't win themselves. But what's more, even in constituencies where we don't have an MP, we can show that we're making a difference. Let's take Mid-Bedfordshire, for example. Nadine Dorries didn't mention her constituency once in Parliament since the start of this Parliament. By contrast, Liberal Democrat MPs have mentioned Mid-Bedfordshire 8 times since the start of this Parliament. Funny that. But in addition to getting hard-working local MPs, we take local issues and we put them on the national stage. And it's more than that, because Conference, we have been leading and winning the battle of ideas. We should be so proud of the fact that we were the first party to call for a windfall tax on the big oil and gas companies. We were the first party to call for the energy price hike to be scrapped, and we were the first party to expose the scandal of raw sewage being pumped into our rivers, our chalk streams, and onto our beaches. Why did we act on these issues? Well, it was because we saw the raw injustice of big oil and gas corporations raking in billions whilst ordinary folk couldn't afford to heat their homes. We saw the raw injustice of the big water bosses taking in millions of pounds in bonuses whilst ruining our natural environment. But there's another raw injustice that we need to tackle too, and that is in the area of mental health. Conference, in my work as our Westminster Health and Social Care spokesperson, I see the damage that this Conservative government has done to our NHS every single day. Health comes first, or so the saying goes. But right now, across our country, we know that too many people simply cannot access the help they need when they need it. At the start of this year, we saw a winter crisis like no other. We saw images on our screens of people dying in the back of ambulances and suffering the indignity of crowded corridor care. And many of us had the horrifying realization that for the first time in our lives, if we called 999, we could no longer have confidence that an ambulance would turn up. The Conservatives have been so busy fighting amongst themselves and lurching from crisis to crisis that they have no real plan at all to put our NHS back on its feet. For our part, I'm proud to say that the Liberal Democrats have come forward with the ideas that will put our NHS back on track. We've set out plans to get thousands of more GPs into our communities and make sure that people have an appointment within 7 days. We've set out a plan to fix the broken dental system that has driven dentists to give up NHS work and have left patients to pull out their own teeth. We've put forward bold plans to rescue social care from the bottom up and to transform the health of the nation by saying that health creation should become a central driving mission of any future government. But today, I want to focus on mental health. There was a time when Liberal Democrat health ministers put mental health centre stage. Indeed, many of you will remember with pride the amazing work of Norman Lamb, who introduced the first waiting time standards for mental ill health. But under this Conservative government, mental health has dropped off the political radar. Today, the nation's deteriorating mental health is one of the biggest challenges we face. We know that 1 in 4 people in the UK will suffer from mental ill health every year. And I suspect that every single one of us in this hall has either experienced mental ill health or we have a loved one who has. And we know that at its worst, it can have a devastating effect on your life, on your relationships, and on your future prospects. And we know it costs our country too, to the tune of £120 billion every year. And it's clear that for every single person affected, the cost of doing nothing is far greater than taking action now. And that's why today, I'm starting to set out our plan for mental health services. Our plan will tackle the long waiting times and the poor access to services, especially those for children. The shocking reality of the nation's mental health now is that the average age for the onset of a mental health disorder is 14 and a half. That's right, just 14 and a half. So that's why our plan starts by rolling out community mental health hubs for children and young people in every area of the country. Rather than leaving children to suffer in the shadows, every child and young person should be able to access the early prevention and support that they so desperately need. It's why we want to see a qualified mental health practitioner in every school, something that our education spokesperson, Munira Wilson MP, and I have spent years calling for. And this would go hand in hand with our pledges to expand young people's mental health services up to the age of 25 so they don't face a cliff edge of support. And we finally want to put an end to out-of-area placements for mental health treatment, which strip people of the support, the very support networks they need for their recovery. Conference, we know that children and young people are at incredibly high risk of mental ill health. But as we get older, none of us are immune. Indeed, there are numerous points in our lives where we could find ourselves unwell. Men aged 40 to 49 are at the highest risk of suicide. 1 in 5 women develop mental health problems during pregnancy or in the first year after childbirth. And 85% of those above the retirement age who are suffering with depression receive no help at all from the NHS. People between the ages of 40 and 74 do, however, receive NHS physical health checkups. Checkups that test for early signs of kidney disease, diabetes, stroke, and heart disease. But no such routine checks exist for mental health. Or not yet. Which is why, Conference, I am delighted to announce that today we will introduce mental health MOTs. These will be mental health checkups at key points in people's lives where we know that their mental health could be at risk, to ensure that everyone across all ages are signposted and can access the support they need for their mental health. Mental health MOTs should be just as routine as physical health checkups. And it will show once again that Liberal Democrats believe that mental health is just as important as physical health. Conference, I am determined that we will win the battle of ideas on how we transform the nation's physical and mental health, empowering people to live long and healthy lives and to save our NHS. Remember, the NHS was a Liberal idea. The NHS was a Liberal idea because health is about freedom. If you have good health, then you are free to live your life as you choose. And if you live with ill health, then good health services can help you live your best life, your healthiest life, for as long as possible. And it's this fundamental belief in enabling people to live healthy lives as they choose that drives our vision of a Liberal Britain. Conference, we want a Liberal Britain that recognises that responsibility for freedoms, for justice and liberty extends beyond our national boundaries. A Liberal Britain that values localism and internationalism, not nationality alone. A Liberal Britain that values individuality over conformity, ideas over identity, and the power of community. Conference, we want a Liberal Britain that cherishes every individual and enables them to have both good physical and mental health. Conference, whilst we are ashamed of this government, we are proud of our country and we are proud of our NHS. There are millions of people across the UK who share our vision of a Liberal Britain, and they want to live in a Liberal Britain like this. Between now and the next general election, it is up to us to show them that it's possible. Thank you, and see you in Mid-Beds next week.